The United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child was created in 1989 in response to the critical situation children all over the world were experiencing, whether it was from suffering from armed conflicts, natural disasters, or inadequate social conditions. The situation called for urgent and effective action. By signing the convention, each country agreed they are responsible for ensuring that children's rights are met and that their laws and policies will take into account the articles within the convention. While ratifying the convention is the first step in improving children's rights, more support and better implementation is needed. Since the ratification of the convention, ongoing violation of children's rights is still occurring. In the developing world, approximately 50% of all deaths to children under the age of 5 is due to malnutrition. Child trafficking is estimated to generate more than $12 billion per year, with up to 17,500 children trafficked into the United States every year. More than 10,000 child soldiers were recruited during the civil war in Sierra Leone, with half being aged between 8 and 14. There is no simple answer to solving all of the barriers and problems when it comes to children's rights. However, when all of the factors, legislation, political willingness, money, and support from civil society work together to enforce and uphold children's rights, progress can be made. Lack of resources, including money, food, shelter, and clean drinking water, impact on a nation's ability to properly protect children's rights. This is particularly the case in developing countries. Without voluntary help and contributions, many developing countries, particularly those who are struck by natural disasters, are without the economic stability to repair, rebuild, and provide for their people. In Australia, one of the most significant limitations we face is that children's rights are not implemented into our laws, policies, and legislation. Without the rights being embedded in national laws and policies, children's rights remain moral aspirations. One example of how lack of policy has impacted on children's rights is Australia's current situation with refugee detention centres. Refugees can be detained for indefinite periods of time, sometimes up to 4 years. This can result in significant mental health effects, particularly in young children, and is an obvious violation of their rights under the Convention. Article 37 states, "The arrest, detention, or imprisonment of a child shall be in conformity with the law and shall be used only as a measure of last resort and for the shortest period of time." This is an example of when children's welfare rights have been violated. Many of you are aware of children's rights in regards to their welfare, including safe drinking water, a safe place to live, adequate clothing, food, and education. But in regards to their liberty rights, this was significantly less acknowledged. Children's liberty rights can also be violated in other, perhaps less obvious ways. This lack of awareness is one of the key barriers to properly implementing and supporting children's rights in our nation and community. In Northern Ireland, there is legislation that protects children in the workforce by restricting the hours they are allowed to work and the types of work they are allowed to engage in. While this is effective at ensuring children are protected and not exploited in the workforce, it also promotes the stigma that children are vulnerable, dependent on adult protection, and not yet competent to make their own decisions. This is an example of when children's liberty rights have been impacted. In regards to healthcare, it has been found that due to difficulties with communication, children with a cognitive impairment receive less treatment for pain pre, during, and post-surgery. This highlights the importance to consider all children as valued individuals and to realise the necessity to not rely on adult communication styles when interacting with children. It is of utmost importance that appropriate means of communication are used when interacting with children of varying ages and disabilities. Many children will be competent if information is presented in an appropriate way. As outlined under the United Nations General Comment 7, as holders of rights, even the youngest children are entitled to express their views, which should be given due weight. There are numerous ways to help improve children's rights. Firstly, giving children a voice. We can do this by supporting their right to be heard and encouraging children to share their opinions and views. Secondly, enabling people to know and stand up for their rights. We can do this by supporting them to become agents of change in their own communities. These are both very important points and the main ones which I will stress to you today. The United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child has existed for 26 years, stating that children's rights need to be embedded within our national policies, and yet this has not happened in Australia. There is a large gap between describing ideal conditions for children at a macro government level and implementing it at a micro level within communities and families. We are going to focus on how we as individuals can implement children's rights at a micro level and therefore enable people to know and protect children's rights. To improve children's rights and to give them a voice, we need to challenge and change the way adults view, listen, and interact with children. Listening to children is the first step in enacting their rights. Responding respectfully and responsibly to what is offered is the second. There are many strategies that can be implemented by adults to improve the way we listen to children and to demonstrate to children we value their opinions. This includes ensuring children's comments are taken seriously, exploring how we can give weight to children's opinions, how can we put their ideas into action, and providing multimodal ways for children to communicate effectively. This is where I reach out to you. Without more knowledge and awareness of children's rights, both in adults and children, we are limited in how far we can progress. Children have proven, even from very young ages, that they understand much of what goes on around them and want to be involved, particularly about decisions which directly affect them. So let's give children a voice. If we can provoke even a small change in how children and their rights are viewed in just one other person, then we have already made positive progress. If we can implement strategies at a micro level within our homes, schools, and communities, it may create enough political will for our government to conform to their international obligations to uphold children's rights. Change starts with just one person. Help make a difference. Raise awareness. What strategies are you going to implement to help support children's rights?